Hello, everyone. My name's Wayne Diggs, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Biz Talks. Today, we're going to talk to you about the entrepreneurial journey from conception to business launch. And just a little bit about me, I'm a assistant professor for business at the Rio Grande campus. And my special guest that I have with us today is Mr. David Marek, who is a serial entrepreneur here in the region. And we are going to share some knowledge with you about that subject. So without further ado, I would like for David to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Yes, my name is David Marek. I'm a technology businessman here in the area, and my current venture is a software development company where we build business solutions for several different businesses in the area. We focus specifically on artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions. And what we're building towards is actually my software startup that we'll be bringing in early 2025.
Wonderful. David, can you tell us about your journey through entrepreneurship? How did you get started, and et cetera?
Well, it seems like I got started before I even was aware of it. You know, at an early age, I was always finding ways to make deals happen. I remember the first instance of myself having my own business was I would burn CDs for friends of mine who, you know, they wanted to listen to their own mix of music. And then my mom got mad at me saying, "Hey, you better not be giving these away for free. You're providing a service." And she was the one that really clued me in. She had her own small business here in El Paso as well. And so that was where I really got started. And that built the spark in me to pursue business. And throughout my life, I've always tried to see what certain businesses could be possible in the area in different markets. And also, on the other side of it, what markets demand a certain type of business. I studied electrical and computer engineering with an emphasis on power distribution and transmission. I really wanted to see how I could get myself onto the business side of power. And after that, I spent some time in Dallas at Texas Instruments, where I was a product marketing engineer. I would work with several businesses all over the entire world, learning how business was done across different cultures. And this was extremely insightful to me. And during that time, I had my own business. It was a clothing business. But after a few years, came back to El Paso during COVID. And during that time, I decided I really wanted to invest in my community. So I started my real estate investing journey, bought some properties here. And that led to me building a construction and remodeling company, which I ran for a few years before I started on the technology sector, which is where my heart's always been. That's what my family's involved in. And so we built DropDev at the beginning of this year, 2024, with a team of myself and 2 engineers. And now we've scaled it up to myself and 7 engineers.
Nice. Can you talk to us about specific strategies that you may use to determine marketing or target audience for marketing? Because that's one of the questions that, you know, when I speak to people within the business community and students here at EPCC, they often have question about. But again, strategies for marketing.
Absolutely. Now, I'm an avid chess player, so I always think in terms of strategy. If you're taking all these approaches and putting in a lot of effort to do marketing without testing a hypothesis, then you're essentially getting nowhere. Because if you're not able to test your assumptions, then how are you going to grow your business? Now, with marketing, there are different strategies that can be implemented. One of my favorites is to actually analyze the market first before you develop a product or a solution. See, what does the market demand? Where is the gap? And in there, you could actually go in and create that solution. That's the difference between trying to find a needle in a haystack and finding, okay, the layout is demanding this needle Now let me just go and insert it.
Wonderful. And that kind of speaks to something else that I'm thinking. Another subject that some people, some business owners struggle with is trying to determine what is the least viable product that they have. Can you share some insight with us on how you could perhaps help determine what the least viable product would be, and then what action should they take to circumvent that or overcome that?
Oftentimes, as businessmen or entrepreneurs, we always try to think ahead of ourselves and think, okay, well, if I want to have my business, it needs to be great in 5 to 10 years. So I need to have everything set up. And really, the minimum viable product or the least viable product is for a way for us to just take that first step. See, okay, what will people pay for? What is that one thing that people will purchase? So when you identify that, then you're really able to sell. The first step to get there to the minimum viable product is by doing market research, is by talking to customers, talking to folks who will be buying your product and asking them, hey, if this was available now, would you buy it? And actually try to get a purchase before you've even built the product. Use the money from the customer in order to actually build your product. So a good example of this would be, let's say I'm doing power washing for homes. Well, I would go to folks and I would promote my services, which is very simple to do. Mm-hmm. You can go on Adobe Illustrator, you can go on PowerPoint, make some marketing material for yourself, shop it around from house to house, sell your service, and with the money that they purchase, get them on the calendar, use the funds in order to buy the power washer. Now you have your minimum viable product for your service. It's really that simple. Is learn to be scrappy and learn how you can take that first step.
I like that when you say learn to be scrappy. Another thing that some small business owners struggle with is having too much product, an excess inventory. Can you talk to that at all?
A lot of times when we have so many products, so many services, we find that most of the sale actually comes from 20% of what we have to offer. And so in that sense, it's much better to narrow it down. Take the In-N-Out model. In-N-Out does very, very well, but they limit their services down because they become expert in that one specific product. Now for them, that's burgers and fries. For myself, that deals a lot more with mobile applications and with web applications. We're not here selling cybersecurity solutions, even though we know those are very attractive. We've really limited down our services into our expertise.
Tech is definitely an integral part of business today. What advice would you share with an upcoming entrepreneur with low budget, how they could take advantage of tech?
Learn to leverage technology from the onset. There are so many free or low-cost resources that will allow you to take your business to the next level, especially if you're in a service-based industry. Utilizing technology, even as simple as Google Maps, can really open the door for you and your marketing ability. Not only that, but there are certain technologies such as Service Titan that allow you to really, hone your craft and take care of all of the administrative side, so that you can do what it is that you want to do, whether that's plumbing or painting, and have the technology take care of the rest. But it's very important to learn that, because I can't tell you how many times I talk to business owners that are doing poor bookkeeping just on a paper record system, or if that, or maybe they're using Microsoft Excel, when nowadays there's so many free, even artificial intelligence solutions that really allows them to get more from their data.
That is such a great point. And I would like for you to speak to entrepreneurs about resources. What do you consider or see to be the most important resources they should take advantage of at the startup phase? For example, accounting, bookkeeping, access to legal advice, etc. Can you speak to that at all?
The best resources by far are going to be YouTube and ChatGPT. With YouTube, you can learn just about anything and everything. There's a huge array of different teachers and instructors there that you can actually learn different aspects of business and different perspectives of business on. Then, utilizing ChatGPT, you can have a conversation with it as a business mentor to help you decide what steps need to be taken. Now, that being said, you shouldn't outsource all the thinking to ChatGPT. You should just use it in a way to help yourself know what direction to take. But that's something that I leverage nearly every single day. And actually, for my business, we have our own proprietary large language model, which helps us build SOPs for our engineers and our employees. So we use our internal service, but utilizing AI and LLM is something that I do constantly in order to help me gain new perspective and new insights into what I'm trying to do.
Wonderful. And you mentioned the advantages that individuals have with using resources like ChatGPT. You touched a little bit upon some of the pitfalls, like, for example, when not to use. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Are there any examples where you've seen business owners use these resources, but it didn't turn out for the better?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's talk about YouTube first.
Sure.
There's a pitfall there of analysis paralysis, where entrepreneurs, they view videos and they say, oh, well, I just need to learn more. I need to view more and consume more content. And in consuming more, you actually may feel like you're progressing towards a goal. But really, you should be able to execute on a vision with less than 100% information. I would even say less than 70% information. It's very, very important to get active, to get engaged in your business. Learn just enough where maybe you even feel uncomfortable saying, I don't know enough. Go ahead, get started, start making sales, start talking to folks about what they need, start working on product. And so that is a major pitfall I see, is folks who they get too scared to take the first step. So that's something I would strongly encourage folks is start moving. Once you start moving, then you can pivot, then you can move. But now you have momentum, you have inertia.
Mentioning or talking about pivoting. At some point, most, if not all, businesses reach that stage where they need to pivot for one reason or another. Can you share some stories, or at least a story about a time where you needed to pivot and how you worked your way through that?
Absolutely. So when we started this technology company, we were actually basing it off of products that we had developed. We had one that was called Moosify, and this was an artificial intelligence financial advisor for your personal self. And after getting so many critiques, we actually pivoted that into a different industry entirely. In fact, that was the birth of the startup that we're founding now, which is Layer 1. Because folks had this situation where maybe they needed to talk to a financial advisor, but there were other folks who needed a similar application, and there's a much bigger market pool there. So am I going to tie myself down to a small industry, a small niche, or am I going to broaden it out and then from there really navigate the field? Now, a good way to think about this is when you're creating a business, in a lot of ways, you're trying to jam a bunch of frogs into a jar and see which one sticks. And then once you have that jar full of frogs, you close the jar and then you see what is. Another way to think about this is saying yes to everything. Now, when you say yes to everything, you're a generalist. Now, you're not really going in one particular direction. You're putting out feelers to go into the market as a whole until you find that one thing that resonates, that has a market validation. When you get that inkling and that data-driven strategy that shows you if you go into this industry, if you go into this niche, there's some success to be found there, that's your pivot. You go into there and then you say no to everything else. So when you start, you might be saying yes to a lot of different projects and opportunities, in order to not turn down any opportunities. Once you find an opportunity, it's very important to laser focus in on that and really drive towards that goal.
Wonderful. In business, there is a bell curve. So we start out one way, praying that the business will come. It comes, and then we find ourselves in the midst of it. Can you talk to us about some things that business owners should consider as they are rising before that product or service that they have plateaus?
Another great question. One is the factory overhead. A lot of businesses I see, they inundate themselves with a large amount of factory overhead, whether that's having a brick and mortar, which is not always the best way to run your business. If you're not needing folks to enter in your store, such as, let's say, a hair salon, then you might question, do you really even need to have a storefront? That's a huge amount of cost that you're putting under yourself. Now, hiring employees before you actually have a need for them, that's another huge burden that you might have. And if you're not tracking this in your forecasting, this is really something that can take you down under. Now, we should always think about ways that we can scale. So when you have your business, you need to be thinking about the long-term vision of it. How are you going to grow? Okay, it's fine if maybe you have a gardening company. You can take on 10 clients, 100 clients by bringing on new employees. But how are you going to take it to the next level? How are you going to have 1 million clients across the country, across the world? Is this something you can scale? And if so, how?
Wonderful. Mentorship, networking. How important is it for business owners to connect with networking opportunities and connect with a mentor, someone perhaps within that field that can help give them guidance, help them get along through? What are your thoughts about that?
Mentors are invaluable. If you're able to find someone who's just at least a few steps ahead of you and is in a place where you want to be, it's great to have that sort of mentor. I have a collection of mentors in different industries that I regularly meet with and consult. And they are my touchstone if I'm doing something correct. And essentially, if I'm having an issue with something, I'm sure they've already dealt with it before. And if not, they may be able to direct me to someone who has dealt with that issue. So I can learn these lessons secondhand. I don't have to repeat the mistakes of the generation before me. Now, when it comes to networking, networking can be a double-edged sword. Oftentimes, if you're networking too much, you could really just be spinning your wheels and not gaining any traction. I can see this happening sometimes with folks who are trying to really find their niche. They talk to other business owners, and other business owners might give them insights. But that may lead to nowhere. That's not actual market validation. That's not market testing. If you're going there to socialize, that's fine. But when you go to these networking events, you should always have a goal in mind. You should always be going there with a purpose or with a vision to connect with certain people for collaborations, for partnerships, for mentoring. But I really don't recommend going out to network just to shoot the breeze. I like to go into networking events with a product or with a service in hand that I can show folks in order to take their business to the next level, or learn how I can take my business to the next level from them. That's positive networking.
One of the things that I learned some years back about networking is that some small business owners actually see little value or no value in free opportunities for networking and free opportunities for training, etc. What are your thoughts about that? And then can you maybe add to your experience in taking advantage of free opportunities?
Very important to utilize the local opportunities that are around you. In every city, there is well, at least in El Paso, we have our economic development. And those folks do a fantastic job of supporting entrepreneurs here. And if you're not tapping into those free resources, that free training, that free mentorship that them and other entrepreneur support organizations are doing, then you're losing out on an invaluable resource that can really give you grants, they can give you money to build your team, they can direct you to find new employees, they can even direct you to find clients. And so I would strongly encourage folks that are interested in entrepreneurship or creating a business to get in touch with these different entrepreneur support organizations that are oftentimes free resources that can give us their experience, their resources, and most importantly, their network.
Wonderful. I'm going to take you back a little bit. What were some of the biggest challenges you experienced at your startup phase?
It's a great question, too. You know, whenever you're running your startup, it's an open landscape. When you work a 9 to 5, you're on a track, and your boss is telling you what needs to be done, when it needs to be done by, or at least the direction. But when you have your startup, it's a completely different ballgame. It's open field. So for you as the lead business person, you have to decide the product. You have to decide the marketing, the sales, the bookkeeping, the accounting. Anything and everything falls under your jurisdiction until you're able to hire someone out to take care of that for you. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes it can be hard to navigate that because you may be wearing 5 or 6 different hats in just one day. And so for us, of course, that was a challenge that we had to handle and really get a pulse on. Now, luckily for me, I've had a lot of experience with prior businesses. So I've gotten the chance to learn what works, mm-hmm. and more importantly, what doesn't work. And utilizing that past experience of failures and successes paired with these awesome entrepreneur support organizations, I was able to get past all of those pitfalls pretty early on in my journey.
Was there one instance or situation that resonates with you most that you would advise anyone out there to avoid? Or if you've seen it anywhere throughout your business travels, whether it's with another company or not?
I would avoid businesses that seem too easy and that are heavily promoted and marketed on social media saying you can get rich overnight. Nothing is easy. Nothing is very quick to do to get money. You know, if it was the case, then there would be several other business people doing that same exact thing. So when you go into the business world, come into it with caution and apprehension and really try to see if these opportunities are real or not. Mm-hmm. One example of this is, drop shipping, where people are promised, oh yeah, you can get rich overnight. All you need to do are look at analytics from Amazon and then get these products from a cheaper source and then sell them for higher. And it's super easy. Just watch this 5-minute video, pay me $100, and I'll show you how to become a millionaire overnight. Nothing is that easy. So I would come to those with apprehension. If you have a solid business plan, if you have a solid strategy, and you can drive that execution, then you should be focused on getting rich over the next 5-10 years and a way to do that. If you do that, you'll bypass most of the pitfalls. And when you do get to the pitfalls, just find a way around it. That's what we have to do.
Wonderful. David, what trends or innovations do you see taking off today that, our audience should consider or at least do some exploratory research on?
Being a tech guy myself, I have to strongly advocate for artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. We now are at the point in time where AI can help you derive a business plan. They can help you generate a logo for your business, product designs for your business. They can help you come up with good copywriting to help sell your wares. And they can also help you, in many different forms. So if you're not utilizing artificial intelligence in your business, then you strongly should, or at least find someone in your network that can guide you with that.
What advice would you give to someone starting up on their entrepreneurial journey?
Get started. Don't delay. Learn the resources. Act before you think you're ready. Don't take on debt. If you're taking on debt for future promises, then it's a very risky play. I've seen it work out well for some. I've seen that work out poorly for more. But don't think that you need to have everything. You have to have a picture on everything before you get started. Oftentimes, when you take that first step, you'll find that mistake, and that negative feedback will tell you the direction to go. And also, oftentimes we lie to ourselves and say, oh, well, if I only had this camera, or if I only had this computer, then I can get started. But as I mentioned before, entrepreneurs, business people, we're scrappy. We find a way to get it done with what we have. So if you're not a marketing person, but you're a one-person team, congratulations. You are now a marketing person. Best time to learn it. Use the phone you have. Start marketing yourself. Start advertising yourself. If you need a product design, but you're not a designer, learn design. And you have to do this for all aspects of the business until you can hire out, which I strongly recommend people do, to hire out experts to take care of the business in a way that they can't. But as a business owner, you should never be outsourcing the mental load to someone else and just trusting that someone else will take care of it for you.
Yeah.
No, if it's your business, you mind your business.
Got it. What's on the horizon for you in your business?
So with DropDev, we are a development studio working on business solutions for other folks while we build up our war chest so that we can launch our own startup. Our startup first product is going to be called Layer 1, which is going to take care of all basic communications between customers and businesses. That's going to help them with customer acquisition, customer retention, and better optimization of their services.
Wonderful. There you have it, folks. Mr. David Marek. Once again, before we close for this session, my name is Wayne Diggs. I'm your host today, assistant professor at the Rio Grande campus. I'd like for you to tune in to future sessions that we have here. You can find us on the YouTube channel. And I also want to thank our magnificent EPCC TV network team here who has sponsored this event. And I look forward to seeing you out in the public and hope that you learned something today. Thank you, Mr. Marek.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.